and welcome to my knitting journey. I am Vanessa and this is a knitting podcast where I talk about all of my recently finished projects and what I'm working on right now, as well as my future plans and all of the yarn and knitting related objects that have entered my stash recently. Now, I think today's episode will be a bit of a longer one because I do have all of my advents to show and I have quite a few projects finished and started. Let's dive right in with my first finished object. That's the sweater I am wearing. I showed this to you last time. It's the starter sweater by Park Williams, and the yarn I used is the Rosa Pommard Brusca. I have the tag right here, and the color was BC. This is made out of 100% wool, and when you look up close, this yarn is made out of two strands, where one of them is white and one of them is brown. And these are the natural colors of the sheep, so it is just plied together by one strand of yarn from a white sheep and one strand of yarn from brown sheep. And the stripes I made with the Drops Brushed Alpaca Silk in the color 4. I used 5.5mm needles, and that is exactly what the pattern calls for. Now, this sweater, I'm going to insert a video where I am wearing it, where you maybe can see it a little bit better. I don't really know about it. I think it's nice and cuddly to wear at home, but I don't know if I'll be wearing this much anywhere else. It's not quite my usual look and silhouette. I think it looks quite rustic. There's a difference between yarn being rustic and having a rustic effect and just the sweater looking rustic. I think it doesn't have any shaping at all. It's all straight because it's a starter sweater. I mean, I knew this beforehand, and this has nothing to do with the pattern. The pattern is well written and well graded, and it's perfect for beginner sweater, but just the combinations of yarn I used with the shaping of the pattern doesn't look very nice, or at least for my taste. I mean, this was knit on 5.5mm needles, so it knit up quite quickly. It's not that I've been knitting on this for 3 months and I don't like the result. I tried it out in a couple of ways over the past weeks, and one thing that I think I like a little bit better is when I'm wearing like a collared shirt underneath. I also insert a video where I just wanted to show how that looks with like it's just like a collar you can clip on like a necklace, and I think that already makes it look a bit more elegant. I'm guessing I just have to try some different looks with this, and maybe over time I'll get more comfortable styling it in a way that suits my wardrobe. The shape, I actually think it's quite nice, like with the bell sleeves. If I had picked a different yarn, this could be a really nice sweater. So don't be discouraged of trying this pattern. It's really well written and it's a nice pattern. I just made the wrong choices for it. Oh, and also, is this just me? Or maybe you're this way as well? If so, you can write it in the comments. But this pattern doesn't have any shaping. The front and back is exactly the same, but I still need a designated back. So while knitting, I sewed down like a little tag in the back, just so I know that is my back. But actually, when wearing it, it wouldn't matter if I had it on backwards because it's just the same. But in my head, I feel more comfortable, and I just want the sweater to have like a designated back. Is this just me? my second finished object is something I am very happy about, and it's my Geogradient Shawl. The pattern is Stephen West's M-Call of this year, so the Geogradient Mystery Knit-Along of October 2023. Oh, and as always, I will link all of the pattern and all of the yarn as far as I'm able to in the description down below. I will also insert a clip of this one so you can see it a little bit better, because me trying to hold it up like this doesn't always work so nicely. For this one I used 4 different colors to make the gradient. The beige yarn and the lighter blue yarn are both Rico Design Baby Merino. I think the beige was color 2 and the blue was the color 11. The greenish yarn is by Faserliebe and it's their non-superwash sock base. It doesn't have a name, the color doesn't have a name. But I'm going to link their online shop down below if you're interested. And the dark blue yarn is Knitting for Olive Cotton Merino in the color Dark Sea Green. The pattern called for 100 grams per color, but I ended up not even using 50 grams per color. So I think I'm always counting on patterns making you buy more yarn than necessary, so you for sure have enough yarn. And I'm happy for that, because otherwise I would have often played yarn chicken with me always buying the minimum quantity of yarn. But for this one, I think it's a bit extreme that I ended up having 50 grams of each yarn left, so that's half of the yarn. And for some of these I bought multiple balls, and I would have bought less and would have less left in my stash right now. At the end, the pattern calls for a border that's made out of these dip stitches, and here's where I shortened my pattern. I wasn't having any fun anymore, and I enjoyed making the dip stitches, but for one row of this border, when doing the dip stitches, you were doing over 1,000 stitches, and it took me a whole evening just to knit one row. So for me, that's where the fun ends, and that's where I decided to shorten the shawl. It's still, let me show you again. It's still more than big enough, so I'm not sad about it, and I don't think that it makes it look any less good having shortened the border. Of course, this is where I used less yarn than indicated in the pattern. However, it wouldn't have used up 50 grams per color. And even adding fringe wouldn't have used up my yarn. This also grew a lot when blogging. If you're interested in seeing that, I did that during my second episode of Vlogmas of 2023. It didn't double in size, but it did grow quite a bit, which I'm not mad about. I mean, less knitting for a bigger shawl. Oh, and for this I used 3.5mm needles. That's also the size of needles the pattern requests. So I did make a swatch and I did meet gauge. Even though I do really love the outcome of this mystery knit along, and I do use this a lot at work, I always lay it around my shoulders when I'm sitting at my desk so I don't get cold. I won't be participating again next year, only because knitting one of these clues per week, it's just too much. And I don't want to be spoiled by seeing the pattern on Instagram when people post their projects. What is? Oh, we have a visitor. Yeah, I just don't want to be spoiled when I'm on Instagram. I also don't want to have to avoid Instagram for a month because I can't keep up with the clues. And besides, I don't have much use for too many shawls. When I have this at work, that's honestly enough. I don't use them anywhere else. And still, I had a lot of fun knitting something where I don't know the result of. It's kind of like a bit of a puzzle where you don't know what the image is. And yeah, I'm happy I participated this year, honestly. I did want to participate once and I thought maybe I would participate again, but I don't think it's realistic for me to do that much knitting in 1 month. And not being able to keep up with the clues will make me enjoy it less. I think she's just made herself an integral part of my videos. She needs to be in every single one. Oh, also, fun fact. While I was knitting this, because it was so big and you were often only working on one side of it, it was always draped over her when she was laying on my lap. She likes to lay on my lap and then be covered by my knitting, so she's all warm and cozy. My last finished object is my Christmas top. If you've seen my Vlogmas videos, you will have seen this already. It's the Ghost Whisperer top by Puck Williams. So two finished objects by the same designer today. And I knit this in Luxe. And this is quite an interesting mixture of fibers. It's 36% merino, 27% silk, 19% camel, and 18% mohair. So you can imagine it's super soft, and I had a lot of fun knitting this. During the dark months of December, it was sometimes a bit hard distinguishing the stitches with this dark yarn, but it was still a lot of fun. I had 3 balls of this yarn, but I ended up using only 2 of them. I knit this on 6mm needles, which the pattern calls for 6.5mm needles, but I don't own any 6.5mm needles and I didn't want to buy new ones for just one project. And the color I chose for this project is perfect for Christmas festivities, because I ended up pouring a whole glass of red wine over this top while I was wearing it. My top underneath was soaked, but this, you can't even see it. It's perfect color for wine. I haven't even washed it yet because I didn't have time to wash and block it before filming this podcast. So yeah, if you can't drink properly, like I apparently can't, knit yourself a top in the color of your drink. This turned out a bit short. I compared it to a Ghost Whisperer top I made a while ago, and this one, actually I knit the body a bit longer, but I think my gauge was bigger on the first one. So this one ended up stretching a bit horizontally when I was wearing it, like with negative ease, and that pulled the top up. But as I said, I haven't blocked it yet, and maybe the cat is playing with a toy over there. And maybe I'll just try to stretch it out a little bit when I block it. Okay, now for works in progress. The first one is this. It's a bit hard to see because of the pattern. It's the framework bralette by Jessie Made Designs, and I was actually planning on wearing this underneath the Ghost Whisperer top. Thankfully, I didn't finish it because I think this one would have showed the wine stain. And I knew that I probably wouldn't be able to finish this in time, but I will still get some wear out of it once it's finished, just for like a cozy bralette to wear at home or to wear underneath the Christmas top whenever I wear it again. The yarn is from my Fabel Knitwear Advent Calendar from last year. It's the Fabel Knitwear Base Athena. It has some sparkly gold stellina in it. I think you can just barely see it. And this I had left over from my Christmas project from last year. It's the colorway Polka. I think she still sells this as a single yarn now after the Advent has been opened. And I think I'm cutting this one close in terms of yarn quantity. I had a bit over 50 grams and I'm just now separating for the tops of the cups. And I only have this much left. I'm holding it double to get to a DK gauge. We will see. Maybe I'll have just to add in another color. I mean, this is an undergarment for me. This isn't something I would wear on its own. So I don't mind if it's a little bit scrappy. Nothing else to say about this right now, except it looks quite small, but it has, you can stretch it quite a bit. So it has a lot of negative ease, which is logical thinking about how this is supposed to support you as a bralette. And this is a bit on a standstill right now. I don't know when I will pick this up again. Right now I'm focusing on different projects, so this really isn't a priority. My next work in progress is a little baby sweater. This is for my sister and brother-in-law, so for Benoit's brother and his wife. They are expecting a little baby girl and she's due in about 2 weeks already, so I really have to get going on this. It's the Friday Sweater Baby by Petite Knit, and it's knit in this broken rib pattern. I think that's always like a really pretty and elegant pattern, and I like working it because it's not too much purling with only having to work rib every other row, but it's also engaging enough to not feel like you're just knitting a whole stockinette sweater. The yarn I'm using for this is this YARNS Merino 200 Bébé in the color 71.0302. Lang always has the longest color names, and it's made out of 100% merino superwash wool. And then for the stripes, I'm interchangeably using this one. This is a sock yarn I got a while back when I was still living in Berlin. I think this is by Rico Design, but I've lost the tag long ago. But thinking about the shop where I bought it, it was probably Rico Design. And it's this speckled purple, orange and blue yarn with a white base. So when you're knitting the stripes, they are very subtle. Like there are some spots where you can barely see it, and I really like the effect it gives. The other stripe is knit in this purple yarn that I had left over from a different project, and it's Drops Baby Merino in the color 14. It's also 100% merino yarn, and all of them are fingering weight. All of them are machine washable, which is very important to me when I knit something for a baby. I don't want the parents to be anxious about washing it, so I always tell them just throw it in the washer on a 30-degree cycle and lay it flat to dry. I mean, it's a tiny sweater, it doesn't take up much space, and then they don't have to bother about hand washing baby garments. I'm using 3mm needles as recommended in the pattern. I honestly didn't make a gauge swatch. I'm knitting the 2 to 4 month old, and if it's a little bit bigger or a little bit smaller, I don't care. It's still going to be in about the range where it will be wearable during winter and spring. And I still haven't sewn down the neckband. The pattern calls to knit it down while working the yoke, but I feel like that can get a bit tight, or at least in the way I knit it, and I prefer sewing it down so I can just sew it down loosely and there won't be like anything restricting the neck of the baby. Yeah, I really have to get going on this. I only have a few rows left. Are you back? Thank you. I only have a few rows left on the yoke, and then I'll be splitting for arms. She needs a cuddle. My last work in progress is a colorwork sweater. I also already talked about this during Vlogmas, but I wanted to go into a little bit more detail here. Again, I'm not expecting everyone to watch like Vlogmas videos. I know that's not for everyone. So as I said during Vlogmas, I've been seeing this Santa Baby sweater by Filcolana a lot on Instagram, where people knit the colorwork Christmas trees and then embroider beads on it, so it looks like ornaments on the tree. And I've seen it last year, but didn't get around to knitting it, and now this year I've been seeing it again, and I thought, oh, if I start it now I won't be able to wear it this year, and then I'll knit a Christmas sweater for spring. But then I was thinking, if I get it started now, I will have it during the whole Christmas season next year and be able to wear it a lot more. And then Knitting for Olive came out with their new base, the no waste wool, and I really wanted to try that. I wanted to see if it's just as soft as their Merino base. The Filcolana pattern called for their own yarn, of course. They were using a yarn that's about a sport weight yarn and then held together with a mohair. So I thought, okay, that should be about DK weight. So if I'm holding fingering weight double, I should get about to the same gauge. And I was right, I'm perfectly on gauge. I'm holding the Knitting for Olive no waste wool double, and I'm meeting perfect gauge. And I even made a proper swatch. I blocked it and everything, and I'm meeting perfect gauge. And I'm very happy and proud about that. So the yarn I ordered, as I said, is the Knitting for Olive no waste wool, and I ordered it in this color. That's the color Powder, and it's made out of 50% recycled wool and 50% extra fine traceable non-mulesing merino. And for contrast color, I've got this dark green, and this one is the color Slate Green. Now, for the difference from this yarn to their usual merino, this has, you can maybe see it, a bit of a more heathered look. So it isn't as uniformly colored as their merino, but I actually quite like that look. And now you can choose if you want it or not by choosing which base you order. And the pattern also calls for a second contrasting color that just goes inside the neck. So it's a folded over neckband and it's the inside of the neckband. It just peeks out like a couple of rows on top. However, I am thinking about also adding it on the last couple of rows of the cuff. And they didn't yet have a red color in their no waste wool base, so I just ordered their usual merino base in the color claret. And I also only ordered one ball of this. I'm just going to hold it double from the outside and the middle. I've got 10 balls of the powder colorway and 2 balls of the green, and then 1 ball of the red. I started this a few days ago and I'm now working on the collar work yoke. So the pattern is constructed by casting on for the neck. You knit the neck ribbing afterwards, so you pick up stitches and knit that and sew it down, and then you are working short rows for the back of the sweater, so it's quite a bit higher in the back. And after that you start your collar work. And I haven't done much color work yet. I've knit the Great Gingham Sweater by Jessie Made. So that's all over color work. That was quite a bit of color work. And some accessories. But other than that sweater, I've never knit a color work sweater. So I'm quite excited for this one. And I'm catching my floats in the back. I hope I'm fine on my tension. I think I'm sometimes a bit loose on my floats, but we will see in the end. And I will actually take you along for this one. I am filming a video about this sweater where I will embroider the trees with you together at the end. So if you want to participate in that, I will be making some polls on Instagram over the year where you can choose the ornaments to go on different trees. And I'll blend in my Instagram handle right here. I recently changed it. I used to be Vanessa B Illustration, but I'm using my Instagram account mainly for knitting right now, so I changed it to Vanessa B Knits. Now, you might be wondering what happened to my Rowena jumper I was knitting on last time out of my hand spun yarn. It looks like this again. So just like a little recap, I was knitting the Rowena jumper by Fabel Knitwear in some hand spun yarn that I spun with a drop spindle. This is my second ever hand spun yarn, and I wanted to knit a cable along the sides of the sweater that then splits into the side arm seams, and I was knitting on it, and I think the yarn was just too bulky for what I wanted to do with it. It didn't look quite right, and with the yarn not being very even, it just didn't look right. It wasn't pretty, and I'm happy that I decided to whip it all out before I got too far. Now I'm currently looking for something else to do with this yarn. Maybe you have an idea what I could knit with this, where like the changing thickness of the yarn wouldn't be bothering, but maybe would even enhance the object. Yeah, leave some suggestions in the comments below if you want to. I'm always open for other ideas. Okay, so before we get to my new yarn and acquisitions for my stash, I wanted to talk about a project that I'm planning to start very soon. I have all of this fluff to knit the Salty Days sweater by Kutowakika, or I think her real name is Veronica Lindberg. I'm not sure. I'm going to put it on the screen so I don't make a fool of myself. And for this, I am holding a few yarns double. First of all, I have this fingering weight woolly knit hank of Tweedy yarn. It's their Aran yarn, I think. And it's 200 grams. And yeah, I've had it for a while and I finally wanted to use it. And I think this is going to give like a nice peppery look for the Salty Days sweater. I'm going to hold it together with this hank of cashmere yarn I got in Venice at Lala Bella's store. If you're ever in Venice, you have to visit that store. It's the woman there is just amazing. She has had that store for I think over 40 years and she makes the most wonderful creations. I'm going to also link that down below, so if you're interested you can pay her a visit. And this is a cashmere yarn that's exclusive to her shop. She has a few more yarns that you can only get at her shop. And it's 100% cashmere and it has 700 meters. It's 50 grams. And this is the color 5528. So this is the second yarn I'm going to hold with this one. And then I also have this Nordic Sky Merino mohair. I'm always messing the two of them up. I'm always saying merino when I mean mohair. And this is 72% Superkit mohair and 28% mulberry silk. And it's the color 2. And I have a few balls of this that I will be holding with these two. So I'm holding the yarn Twiffle. And I'm very excited for that project. I've been planning to make it for a while, but I didn't have a ball winder and I wasn't very motivated to wind all of this yarn by hand. I would have to wind like over 2,000 meters of yarn and yeah, I wasn't feeling that. But now my boyfriend got me a ball winder for Christmas, so I can get started on winding all of that yarn. And he's even making me a Swift himself that will be finished soon, and I think in January you should see this on the needles. Okay, so for yarny acquisitions I do have quite a bit. I am trying to add chapters in this video, so if this isn't for you, you can skip to the end where I will be talking about my yarn ban for 2024. Surprise, surprise. The first yarn I got was in Bonn when I went there with my mother in the beginning of December. And it's this Wolle Rödel sock yarn, color changing sock yarn. It's 75% wool and 25% polyamide. It's 190 meters per 50 grams. So each of these balls should give me a pair of socks. This one is color 1 and this one is the color 36. And I'm rushing a bit through these because I have quite a bit to get to. Now, next up, my best friend made me a yarny advent calendar for this year. We made each other advent calendars. She got one that was more for crochet and she made me one for knitting. And I got a bunch of yarn in that. I'm trying to go a bit chronologically in the order I received them, but I'm not sure if I still remember quite correctly. The first one is by Yarns, their Mohair Luxe, and this is made out of 77% mohair and 23% silk. It's 50 grams and 350 meters. And this is the color, Lang and their wonderful names. It's the color 1029.0059. And it's falling apart a bit. Good thing I now have a ball winder, so I can rewrite this before using it. Next up should be this one. It's also Lang yarns. It's their Frida base, and this is 100% merino. And I think it's a DK weight. Yeah, it's 220 meters per 100 grams. And this is the color 1078.0004. And it's this pretty color changing earth toned yarn that's right up my alley. She does know me quite well. Next up, this is going to look like it's a work in progress, and you may be asking yourself, you didn't show this at the beginning of the video? Well, this is because this isn't my work in progress. The yarn has been abducted. It is also a color changing yarn. I don't know what Benoit did with the tag when he stole the yarn. He is making a blanket for our cat. I told this story during Vlogmas, but I'm going to tell it again. 1 second, he made a mess. So when I got this yarn, I'm just going to tell you while untangling this. When I got this yarn, Benoit said, so my boyfriend Benoit, he said that I could make a blanket for our cat Luna out of this. And so I held the yarn in front of Luna and asked her if she wanted a blanket made out of this yarn. And usually when I hold yarn right into her face, she swats it. But this time she actually just laid her paw on it as if to say, yeah, this is mine now. And you have to make something out of it for me. However, I was working on my Christmas project right then, and I told Benoit that I don't have time right away and that she has to wait until I have time. And he wasn't okay with that, so he said, no, you're casting me on some stitches, because he does not know how to cast on. You will cast me on some stitches, on some needles, and he will knit the blanket. He does know how to just do straight garter stitch. So he's making her a blanket to put on the windowsill above our radiator, so she can get even more crispy when she sleeps there the whole day. This is how far he's come so far, and this was in my advent calendar, but it doesn't belong to me anymore. Next up, the Lang Yarns Merino 120 Dégradé. Dégradé just means color shift, and this is made out of 100% superwash merino, and it's 120 meters per 50 grams, so also about a DK weight. And it's the color 37.00009, and it has this pretty color shift that isn't repetitive, so it starts with one color and goes through all of these and ends in a different color. It doesn't repeat itself. And I am thinking about making a pippin scarf out of this. This should be enough to make just one scarf, like a little neckerchief. And I'm super excited to try this. So this might be on my needles soon. Next up is another Lang Yarns Frida. It's the same base as before, but it's a different color. This one is 1078.0002, and it's just a tiny bit lighter and more orange than the other yarn. Maybe I can hold them up for comparison. Yeah, this one is more greenish blue and this one is more orange. However, as they are color changing, I'm thinking that maybe I could still use them together. So the beginning of the project is either darker and colder, or brighter and more orange, or the other way around. Yeah. So I would be able to make something a bit bigger out of it. Next up is this skein of yarn. It's Laneras Barefoot, 100 grams. Barefoot fingering in the color Frangipani. It's 100% washable pole warp, which I'm quite excited about. I've never knit with pole warp before. And it's 4-ply fingering rate, approximately 365 meters per 100 grams. That's 400 yards. And it's this pink and orange, almost, yeah, it's almost a tonal, but not quite. And I'm excited to try this. Now, for the last of her yarns, and this one is totally overkill, because she bought me one plate or one ball of Noro yarn, and this is the Kanzashi yarn. I don't know if that's how you say that. It's 30% mohair, 30% silk, 23% wool, 14% viscose, and 3% polyamide. And it's 210 meters per 150 grams. And this one is this pretty green and more jewel toned color shifting yarn, and it's a bit more moody than the other colors. I really like this. And I think this is going to be turned in like a squishy scarf. I can really see that. And I haven't made many scarves yet, surprisingly, because that's usually the first thing everyone makes. But yeah, let's say I have started a lot of scarves. I haven't finished many scarves yet, but this one I will finish as soon as I start. There was one more thing in her advent calendar. It's this Luxe needle gauge, and this is very practical because the numbers on my needles are only printed on and they are slowly disappearing. And this also has a ruler both in inches and in centimeters. It also gives the needle numbers in millimeters and in US needles. And I wanted to take a moment and thank her again for her amazing advent calendar. She went way overboard. I have enough sweets for the next couple of months. Thank you so much. And here's her Instagram handle, so you can check her out. She does crochet, and she mostly crochets like little figurines, but she also wants to try herself on garments. Now, I also got myself the Fabel Knitwear Christmas Club present that I opened on the last day of Vlogmas, and this included one skein of her Athena yarn in a new colorway, in an exclusive colorway. And it's a tonal. It's this beautiful brownish red, and the color is just 2023 Xmas Club. And her base, her Athena base, is 75% superwash merino, 20% nylon, and 5% gold stellina sparkle. And that's what makes this yarn so lovely and sparkly. It's the same base as the bralette I'm knitting, and I really like this. And in this package was also included these yarns. They are like a tinsel yarn, yeah, gold glittery yarn. I don't know yet what I'm going to make with this. Maybe some ornaments, but I'll see about that next year. This color, however, is really my thing and I can't wait to use it. Now, I also made myself a Knitting for Olive advent calendar, where a few months ago I just picked some colors on their website that I enjoyed and that I wanted to try out, and ordered all of it. This came out cheaper than getting a hand-dyed mini skeins calendar, and I have a lot more quantity of yarn. Maybe next year I'll get a hand-dyed advent calendar again. I will have to see. But this year, this was really practical for me because I wanted to give a lot of these colors a try without buying a sweater's quantity, and now I can come up with a lot of scrappy projects. I made sure that the colors do fit together. I have them all laying here on the couch next to me. That's why I keep looking to the side. I'll have a lot of fun coming up with some scrappy projects to try out these yarns. I ordered yarn in a few of their bases. The first one I'm going to show you is the Merino. And yeah, this is just 100% extra fine Merino, 250 meters per 50 grams. All of their fingering weight yarns have the exact same gauge, so they can be used interchangeably. And some of these I've got multiple balls of, others I only got one of. I'm just showing a single one of every color right now. This is the color Dark Moose, the color Fennel Seed, and I'm rushing a bit through them because it's a lot and I don't want this to get too extensive and take over the whole podcast. The color Elderflower, Mushroom Rose, Cloud, and Dusty Banana. These were all of the Merino ones. As I said, some of them I have multiple balls of, some of them only single ones. Now for the cotton Merinos I only have two. One of them is Rose Mouse and the other one is Purple Elephant. And they are 70% organic cotton and 30% merino. Same gauge as the Merino. 250 meters per 50 grams. Next up we have the silks, and these are 100% of Bralette silk, and as far as I know they only use the cocoons of the silkworms after they have, what do you call that, after they were born? I don't know. So they aren't killed in the process of making this. This is also 250 meters per 50 grams. The color Powder, so the same as the one I'm using for my Santa Baby sweater. Dusty Artichoke, I think this one is a popular one. Lamb's Ears. And the final kind is the soft silk mohair. This one is made out of 70% mohair and 30% silk. This of course has a different gauge because it's a lace weight yarn. This one is 225 meters per 25 grams. And I have this one in color Claret, so also same color as I've got for my Santa Baby sweater. The color Cloud, Mushroom Rose, Pomegranate, and Dark Moose. Some of the mohairs I've got to hold together with some merino, so I have the same colors. Yeah, that was all of my acquisitions. And after showing you these vast quantities of new yarn that have entered my stash that I do not yet know what to do with, I am telling you that I'm going on a yarn ban in 2024. I have so much yarn, especially in the last 3 or 4 months. I've bought so much yarn, it's gotten quite out of hand. I don't know how to knit with them because it's so much. I will have to, it will take me years to knit with all of them. So this will hopefully be the last acquisitions or new yarn part in my podcast for a while, or at least there shouldn't be much coming next year. I am going to slightly explain my rules for my yarn ban right now, but I am going to make a more in-depth video about my stash and my yarn ban in January, where I'm going to show all of my stash and also some of the plans I already have to work with this yarn. So the thing is, this isn't to to punish myself, but I do work quite nicely in boundaries. I do have to be a bit more frugal next year because we have a lot of renovations in our house where a lot of my money will have to go to. And this turns the whole yarn ban thing into more of a project and less of a punishment. It isn't a punishment, this is my money, I can do with it what I want. And if I decide to buy yarn with it, it's okay. But to me, it isn't okay anymore because it's getting quite out of hand. I have one closet where I put all of my yarn, and after I've put in this, it will be bursting. And I don't want anything to enter that closet until some of it has gone. And as I said, I do work quite nicely within boundaries. It makes me get creative and it makes me excited for projects. As part of this project, I am going to make bi-monthly update videos. So every 2 months, I'm going to make a little update video to show where I'm at with using up my yarn and maybe talk about some new projects that I'm planning, or even ask for suggestions. The update videos will also give me the possibility to film more in a vlog style during the couple of months I'm talking about, which I have enjoyed a lot during Vlogmas, and this way I have a way to continue filming in my everyday life and maybe updating about some projects while I'm working on them, and instead of just in a podcast format. This will provide you as well as me with a more varied range of videos that isn't just a sit down podcast style of video. But as I said, I'm going to make a more in-depth video about rules in January, where I will explain everything a bit more detailed, because I think this video is already a lot longer than my podcasts usually are and the way I like them. I personally don't like watching podcasts that take hours and hours, so I also don't want to make them myself. One last important thing is that I changed my Instagram handle to Vanessa B Knits instead of Vanessa B Illustrations. I'm also going to write that down in the description below, so you can always find me over there. Thank you so much for watching, and I'm wishing you a wonderful end of the year, and most importantly, I'm wishing you all of the luck and all of the joy for the coming year and some happy crafting. Bye! Thank you.